So I have amassed quite an indie hat collection. I started in 2008, around the time that Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was released. I was into the hat forums like the Club Obi-Wan on Indie Gear, and I was after the perfect hat, or at least good enough for my limited knowledge. And this was in advance of the film coming out, and so I picked up a Herbert Johnson that was blocked by Steve Delk from AdVintage, who ultimately went on to make the hats for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And that was the first hat. I've subsequently got rid of that. It was a factory-made hat because of that, or maybe other associated reasons, it really lost its shape over the years, even though I didn't wear it much, but it really lost its shape, particularly the crown, just kind of became a little dome. So I've passed that on. But the other hat I bought at the same time, or roughly the same time, was this. So what you're looking at right now is the Akubra Federation IV. And at the time of placing my order in 2008, they were still producing the Federation III. And I got an email from, I believe it was Hats Direct, who I ordered it from, can't remember now. And they said, if you're willing to wait a little bit longer, we'll send you the Fed 4 rather than the Fed 3. So that's the Fed 4 right there. Interestingly, it's, I'll knock the monitor in a bit. It doesn't actually say Federation 4 on the inside. 1 second. It just says Federation. If you were to go to buy this hat today on Hats Direct, it would say Federation 4 on it. So I don't know if that was just a decision that they ended up making later on to help with the branding. But yeah, this is a very early Fed 4. And as you can see, it's held up pretty well over the years. You can see some tapering on the back, and the front's a little bit difficult because I haven't popped the bash out, but it isn't quite straight on all sides, and I don't think it ever really was. I think that the hat block that they used at the time was a good enough approximation of an indie hat. And I know, at least from reading the website and at the time and more recently, that they had some feedback from Steve Delk in terms of the shape, and that's why they had some changes between the 3 and the 4. But the hat band is pretty accurate in terms of its color, etc. I'm cheating a little bit here to make it look a little bit more square-sided because I've got the dents popping a little bit further out than they would otherwise. But that was just to kind of give it more of a straight-sided effect, which is not perfect, as you can see. So more recently, I moved on to, I got the bug again, I guess. Something probably to do with the fact that the films come out, and then I start remembering that I'm into these hats. So more recently, now it's 2024, I thought, well, maybe I'll pick up a couple of hats that are a little bit more accurate in terms of their proportions and their straight-sidedness. It's something that I think maybe I've been slightly obsessed over. I was trying to find a hat with very, very straight sides, and also the front and back. So this is an AdVintage Harrison. So this is also a factory-made hat, as is the Akubra right there. But the AdVintage Harrison is made in Germany by a man named Thomas, and he has his own line of handmade hats, both beaver and rabbit, and I look forward to eventually maybe picking one of those up. But this is the factory offering, and I'm really, really pleased with it. It's super impressive. Let me bring it a little closer here. So, as you can see, just immediately off the bat, very straight-sided, very good proportions. It's got, when you pop the crown out, it's got 5.5 inches, which is exactly what the best estimate to the indie hat, or at least the Raiders hat, was. I've asked it to be bashed in a Last Crusade style, which he's done a very good job with. You can see it's quite stiff, and that's, I think, mainly just to ensure that the shape, is retained, particularly in shipment. I'm not going to batter this or anything in order to loosen it up, because I'm quite happy with the way it looks. You can also see how straight the sides are, and the front and back. And that was really important to me to get that kind of look with this particular hat. So yeah, it's actually really, really impressive. It's pretty basic on the inside, right? The liner's white. It's fine though. That's absolutely spot on. What I really appreciate about all three of these hats, to be perfectly honest with you, is just how thin the sweatband is. It's almost like you don't even notice it's there. In my old factory-made Herbert Johnson from 2008, it was quite thick, and it wasn't necessarily a problem in terms of the wear of the hat, but it just didn't feel quite as nice and finished. But yes, this is the AdVintage Harrison, which you can pick up. It's really reasonably priced for a hat of this quality, at least to my eye. So that's the factory-made hat. Very good one though. So I'll put that over to the side here. Then we'll get on to my last one. So this is a Herbert Johnson, a more recent one that I received just a handful of days ago. It's a 2024 handcrafted version of their indie hats, and you can get it in all sorts of bashes. I've opted for the Streets of Cairo look, and I have rebashed it slightly, which I'll explain in just a moment. But let's have a look at the hat in and of itself. One thing you'll immediately notice is, in addition to being straight-sided, you can also see a bit of that kind of curvature upward, that mushroom effect that people really like about the, or find unique at least about the Cairo hat. And Herbert Johnson's done a good job of replicating that here without actually beating the hat up and then soaking it in sweat. So very straight-sided, really pleased with that. As you can see, we'll turn it around to the side here. It's got a little bit of dust and fluff on it just because of the nature of being in a house. But as you can see here, even with the bash, the front pinch being as tight as it is, and obviously you expect a bit of curvature as a result of that. But look at the back there, it looks real nice and straight, real good. And it's kind of hard with, this camera and the lighting just to express the richness of this particular color. So I think this one is referred to as deep sable, and that's, obviously that's the kind of wording or branding that Herbert Johnson wants to go with. AdVintage calls this their true sable color. They're slightly different in color, not very different, but there's a certain richness to this one I really appreciate. It's also a little softer, just around kind of all of its areas, maybe a little less stiffener, or it might have something to do with the type of felt that they're using. So yeah, and the back as well, very nice and straight side with a little bit of curvature there on the right-hand side. So really, really nice. Let's have a look on the inside then. So this is the, that's the liner right there. Herbert Johnson, as you can see, and a really nice kind of golden liner without any kind of plastic covering the insignia. It's nicely stitched. I suspect that's machine stitched, which is absolutely appropriate. But just a nice finish, a really nice finish, and a really, really soft sweatband. Very, very nice. And as you can see, they pop the IJ on there for Indiana Jones, which I guess only they could get away with, given that they were the hatters for 4 out of 5 of the films. So there you go. So yeah, this one, it took about maybe 2 months to receive after placing my order, which I thought was pretty good, given that they suggested that it might take longer. So just a quick note. When it came, the front bash, so everything else is kind of unchanged about the bash as you see it, but the front bash came down to about here. And so it caused the crown, you had a nice little kind of mushroom effect at the top as a result of that. The front crown was quite low, so in comparing the hat to some of the screenshots of Raiders, it just looked a bit proportionally off. And I don't know what the purpose of that was. So I've bashed it, raised this up a bit to then have that full effect of the height at the front of the hat. And I think it's come out all right. I was a little concerned to begin with because I thought perhaps that the whole crown was a bit shorter than the 5.5 inches that you'd expect, as I knew that the Harrison had. But after popping the crown out and doing some measurements, they're virtually the same. There might be maybe a 1/4 of an inch difference, possibly a little less. So it's not a perfect 5.5 inches, but it's good enough. And you know, from Herbert Johnson's website there, not necessarily saying you're going to get that exact height. But they're very, very close, as you can see. And in fact, even this old one, my Akubra, which I really, really like and use most often, the Akubra, is a bit shorter, right? It's a bit shorter in its crown height. It's probably lost some height as a result of time and moisture in the air and all the rest of it. But it's still a really, really soft, lovely hat. This is just the Imperial felt version, not the deluxe version, that they do 2 versions. I think if I were to get one now, spending the extra, what is it, like 20 pounds or 20 Australian dollars, it's such a small difference in price. I'd probably just go ahead and get the deluxe version. But great hats, all of them, and I'm really looking forward to getting some more wear out of them. I can't promise this is the end, but it'll have to be for a while because I don't think my marriage would survive it. All right, take care and all the best.